This is a type of plant that's known as a drosera or a sundew. The one you see right now is growing here in Australia. When an insect sits on top of the stem, it gets stuck in the sticky mucus and the stem will slowly coil inwards, crushing and eventually digesting the insect. Special glands in the stem can secrete digestive enzymes and can also absorb nutrients from the dead body. This is not the only type of carnivorous plant that is found in Australia. If you take a list of which countries have how many different types of carnivorous plants, you will get a clear winner. Australia has the most number of carnivorous plants across the entire world. The second place winner, Brazil, only has about half the number of carnivorous plants as Australia. So why does Australia have this many carnivorous plants? When Charles Darwin came here to Australia in 1836, he was fascinated by the amount of carnivorous plants here. In fact, Charles Darwin wrote in his diary that he cared more about the origin of Drosera than the origin of all the other species in the world. Charles Darwin's research on his carnivorous plants, he eventually published it as the book Insectivorous Plants. Now, he was one of the first person to correctly identify that different types of carnivorous plants evolved differently. In fact, now scientists think that there are at least 16 different times where different plants independently evolved carnivory. Now, this means that all of these carnivorous plants are not related to each other. For example, the sundews are much more commonly related to cabbages and cauliflowers than any other carnivorous plant. It's actually a misconception that most of the energy of a carnivorous plants comes from eating insects, but that's not true. In fact, almost 100% of the energy of a carnivorous plant is obtained through photosynthesis. So then why are these carnivorous plants hunting insects? The answer is they do it for minerals, not energy. The thing is, these carnivorous plants grow in soils which are really, really nutrient poor. So, in order to get essential nutrients like nitrogen and phosphorus, these plants have to find another way. And they do that by capturing insects which are really, really rich in these nutrients. So the reason Australia has lots of carnivorous plants is because the soil here is really, really nutrient poor. The thing is, nutrients can be leached out of the soil pretty quickly by rain and rivers like this. And there are processes that replenish these nutrients back into the soil. These are things like volcanoes, which bring new nutrients up from the magma, then earthquakes, which essentially turns over the soil, bringing the greater nutrient-rich soil to the top. Then there are like processes which build mountains, orogenic processes. These processes bring new nutrients to the ground. The thing is, none of this has been happening in Australia for the couple hundred last million years. So, if you can take a look at the Australia for the last couple of million years, and you will notice that nothing is happening here. No new continent is smashing into it. Australia is not breaking apart. There's no new mountain ranges that are being formed. So, in geological terms, Australia is a pretty stable continent. So over the course of millions of years, most of the minerals which are water soluble has been leached away by rivers and rains throughout the entire Australian ecosystem. But most of the minerals of iron are not water soluble. So iron is left behind on these rocks. So most of the rocks and most of the soils here in Australia has a reddish tinge due to the iron oxide or rust that's present in them. So when presented with incredibly nutrient depleted soil, the plants here chose to expand their menu by feeding on insects. So it's kind of ironic that down here in Down Under, the food chain is also reversed. The plants eat the animals. Thanks for watching.